So hi, this is Jetpack Swords, a gaming and gaming adjacent podcast. I'm James, joined by Packy. We do not have our third co-host this week, Greg. So it's going to be a much more focused episode.
It's Game Pass showing.
No, it's gonna be good. Yeah, it's gonna be less Game Pass, less Microsoft. So, good stuff.
Actually, the entire plan was specifically the one game, right? All Armored Core today.
Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, we can make it a quick one, too. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but definitely talk about our experiences. And then I was just going to do a brief run-through of, what this series is, because it's not exactly like a Call of Duty or a World of Warcraft where it's got massive, appeal beyond its really dedicated fan base.
Yeah, you want to hit it with a quick, the quick TLDR for what Armored Core is.
I will literally read the Wikipedia and summarize it. So I have played some of the older ones, but I've not played a ton of them, and I'm not super familiar with the overall series. I think the last one I played was on the 360. But Armored Core is a Japanese series from Software, who are more well known as the developers of obviously Elden Ring most recently, but also before that, Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, literally creating the Soulsborne, Souls-like genre that everybody else is still chasing. But they also make mech games. Armored Core is the big franchise other than the Dark Souls series, and they also made one of my favorite games of all time as a kid that is never getting a sequel called Chrome Hounds, which was also a mech series. It was a single game on the 360. It was a launch title. But yeah, Armored Core is Wikipedia describes it as a third-person shooter mecha video game series. Mecha being, big human-controlled robots, basically. And unlike a lot of Western media that has robots like that, where they're usually very slow, grounded, weighty, think BattleTech, even Titanfall, they're relatively fast in Titanfall, but they're nothing like Armored Core. Pacific Rim is a good example, too. The ones in Armored Core are very fast. They are covered in jet boosters, and they basically move at the speed that you would imagine a normal person moving in, but they're big robots. So, there's a little bit of, a scale dissonance there, because you'll be like, oh, this is just normal. I feel like a normal person. And you'll look at, a car, and it's way smaller than you, and you realize that you're moving very quickly for something your size.
I thought of the two different genres of mech games is there's the glidey ones, and then there's, as you described it, the weighty ones. The one where you feel every footstep, and the one where you never feel one at all.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting that it's generally a, Western versus Japanese style divide there. There are way more of the glidey, floaty ones on the Japanese side and way less of that on the Western side, for whatever reason. And generally, it's a third-person shooter, and unlike a lot of other shooters where you have one weapon at a time, because you're in a big mech, you have your two arms and then you have your shoulders, and so you can equip basically up to 4 weapons at a time and use all of them at once. And then you have all the mobility and the gliding around, being super fast, as you just actually control it. And they're all about just energy management, because you actually have to manage your generator's energy to power the armored core, which is what the mech suit thing is called. Very mobility focused, of course, because you are so fast. And they are, as far as games go, generally linear single player games where you progress through a series of missions. You're usually playing as a mercenary that's helping corporations or some other group on whatever planet the game is set on. And you just progress through these missions, trying to get as good of a score as you can, basically, experiencing the story. And as you go through it, you unlock more parts and equipment for your mech, and generally you also get credits, so some kind of currency to spend, and that's how you actually get the rest of the parts. The game gives you a couple by default usually, but most of the other parts you have to buy from an in-game store using the currency that you earn as a mercenary. But yeah, it's a really niche, but very well-loved and well-liked franchise. And this is Armored Core 6 is what we're talking about today, because it just came out last week. And yeah, Pat, do you have anything to say before we jump into this?
I think it's why it's niche, because I think it would be way more popular, and it was way more popular at the time, if we're on 6, 5 came out in 2012. It had so many entries, between when I think it started in right at the beginning of 2000, had not just the numbered entries, but also other ones, kind of littered throughout that period.
There are, 13 main games, 7 spin-offs, and 3 remastered re-releases. And it started in 97.
Wow.
And then it's been going until now.
And it's just because they've been the Dark Souls company for so long, right? Like, you can't blame them. They were doing so much with, that new genre, and it just had so much success. It was like, I think everyone was over the moon. They were even willing to come back to Armored Core.
Yeah, for sure. And like FromSoft, like, is obviously, like I said, well known for like all the Souls-like games, but I mean, they were even making those kind of games even further back before Demon Souls. They had like the King's Field series, which they were like well known for at a time, and then Armored Core, and then Demon Souls and Dark Souls and everything else. They're all over the place, but all their stuff is like, it's quality. Like, they're a quality name that you can generally trust, even if it's not like your kind of game, for sure.
I do love their niche games, even though Dark Souls has become more popular. Like, they really cater so much to a niche audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also wanted to, I think that's a good overview. I want to talk a little bit about both of our contexts as like gamers, because we were both excited about this for a while. In a way, I think most people, like, long before the big hype train over the past 2 weeks started.
For sure.
Because we both play mech games, which is, as we mentioned, a niche category.
It's pretty niche.
I've always played the gliding ones. Like, we've talked about it. I think you've been much more skewed towards the weighted ones. Not that you don't play both, but like, I've always gone for like the two big ones that I think of, mech games that I really like that are much smaller, are Project Nimbus. Really, really good one you can pick up for cheap on Steam if you like Armored Core. Actually, more so,
I think I know which one that one is. I think I've seen that before.
It's a little indie project. It gets into one of the pitfalls I'll talk about when we start talking about the story of 6. But and then the other one, if you like Armored Core, this one is like, it is so incredibly similar. If you just want more of it, it's Daemon Ex Machina.
Yep, I've played that. I have it. It's fun. And I did play that in the lead up to this game, because I was like, I need something to play that's basically Armored Core. And I literally played it and skipped every single cutscene because the story is trash.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to deal with that. I just want to fly around and shoot things, please.
And this is the same way. It is. They both fall into the anime storytelling, because that's popular right now. And it's not good. It's really bad for both of them.
Which, I will say, Armored Core, in my opinion, does not have that issue.
Definitely not. I think it hits some of the pitfalls. I think kind of getting into the game. And more context. I think so. We both played. I probably played because I played a little bit of BattleTech. And I'm looking through. I was looking through the different lists you're trying to find, because I really played them in that actual. I didn't play much of the real. I only played 5 of the actual Armored Core series. Maybe 4.
Whatever the 360 one was, I think the PS3 360 was the only other one that I've like actually played. Yeah. Maybe that was 4, maybe that was the 5. I can't remember which one.
I think that's 4, which means I think I played it on the 360, so I probably played 4, because 2012 I think is when we're officially in the Xbox One era.
It was 4 because it was from the first, in my memory, the first next gen generation, and that was when everything was gray, brown, neutral colors, and Armored Core 4 is very brown. And so, yes, I'm pretty sure it's Armored Core 4.
Yeah, and then I really like, and these aren't really mech games, but I played some of because I just love the Gundam series, even though takes anime mech to a whole nother level. I've tried several of those. They are not nearly as good. No. But they are also.
They should be.
God, they should, cool, right? They have great suit design. Love that. Gameplay, they were made with the philosophy that this is not a mech game. This is a JRPG action game. And that's not a good fit for that series at all.
No.
I almost, purely out of love for that series, went and tried. They have an online game that is just Overwatch that is doing quite well right now.
Is that the free-to-play one?
I don't know the exact name, but it is free-to-play Overwatch that is Gundam.
Don't know either.
I was almost going to play it before I decided to play Daemon Ex Machina, and I just watched the gameplay. I was like, this is just Overwatch. I can't even see my suit. This is a first-person shooter, and I don't want to play it.
No.
But so I've played a fair bit of. I love them to death, and I always wanted exactly what you saw in the trailers, which is like, all right, let's do next gen, and let's make use of the technology of next gen to be able not only to make it prettier like we always do, but make it cohesive, have a lot of elements on there, but make them very visually distinct. Make it chaotic, but make it so that you can control the chaos. Because I usually think mech games go in one way or the other, where it's if they feel a little empty and there's not enough going on in these very large battlefields, or there is so much going on that and it's not rendered very well, and you just like you're just kind of dodging and like moving and or holding the triggers and being like, I'm pretty sure this is a winning strategy, but I can't really see.
Yeah.
And Armored Core 6 finally gets away from that.
4 was definitely like that.
Yeah, especially on, you mentioned the color scheme. Like the color scheme really hurt the genre in general, and that's one of the big things of Daemon X Machina and Nimbus that I really liked is they were finally like, let's just be in really bright settings and colorful, even if it's all like floodlights and stuff like that. But it's just like, let's recognize we have a lighting problem and like a visibility problem, and let's just, color things and light things in a way where, maybe it's a little washed out, or maybe it's a little like smoothie anime for your taste, but at least you can see everything.
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely important when the action can be as fast paced as some of these games can be. So, for my context, so I think mechs are cool. Obviously, if you listen to any of these episodes, you guys hopefully all know that I like technology and just like ships and aerospace and tanks and anything that's like vaguely military technology, I think is really cool, just like visually. I think MechWarrior 4, I want to say, was the first mech game I probably played, and that was on the original Xbox. And I was really bad at it. And MechWarrior is in the BattleTech universe, so it's, I think, originally a tabletop. And it's very weighty, grounded mechs. Like, they can still jump and, like, fly around, but it's very slow. They just kind of jump from place to place. And then I played a lot of Harebrained Schemes BattleTech game, which they're the ones who also made the Shadowrun CRPGs. And BattleTech is basically a turn-based mech strategy game. It's a lot like XCOM, but like much grander scale because you're in these big mechs. BattleTech is really, really, really good. And then I played Chromehounds, which was a launch title for the Xbox 360. It's actually, I think, my first 360 game. We actually played it before we had a hard drive for our 360. Because for whatever reason, I don't remember if it was because we just didn't set it up on like Christmas when we first got the 360, or if we just did not get a 360 that came with a hard drive. I don't really know, but we didn't have one. So you got as far as you could in this game, and then the next day when you turned the 360 off, you'd have to restart all your progress over again. And it was really a really weird time that like we did that, and we're just okay with it. At least my family was. I don't know. It was really
I think everybody from 2000s gaming has a story like that. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, for sure. It was this weird train. I mean, it's just like everything. Like 2007 and like 2006, it was like you're still basically just the extended 90s, and then like the iPhone comes out, and like next gen, like that time comes out. We got like the PS3, the 360, Halo 3 comes out, and I feel like that's like the flipping point where it starts to become like the 2000s for real. I don't know. It was a weird time, and obviously we grew up in it, and it's just weird. But Chromehounds was, which I didn't find this out until like 5 years ago, 3 years ago. Chromehounds is a FromSoft game, which I did not know that when I was a kid, or until, like I said, like 3 or 4 years ago. But Chromehounds was, I think, their FromSoft's attempt to make a more Western-aligned mech game. So it was definitely still like a little glidey and floaty, but it was way more grounded than like Armored Core ever was. But it had all the same stuff Armored Core is known for, where it's very customizable, like the mech that you make had different like legs and like bottom pieces and like different cores and generators. And actually, Chromehounds was even more customizable than Armored Core. Armored Core is very much like you have 2 arm slots, the shoulder slots, and then like your main body pieces, and then like the internals, which are just like a generator, usually like a fire control thing, and then the boosters, at least in 6. I can't remember if the old games had the booster thing too. But Chromehounds was basically the like Lego version of Armored Core. You could basically make whatever you wanted, and as long as the mech itself could physically power itself and move, the game did not care. I remember making melee mechs in that game that were, it was like 7 pile bunkers, which in mech, I don't know where it comes from, but in like mech games, a pile bunker is just a big metal spike that is like spring loaded, and you just jam it into enemy mechs and they die. Chromehounds had that also, but it was just like an individual piece, and so you could put on like 12 of them, which means that you were a very slow, basically suicide mech, that if the enemy was distracted and you could get in within melee range and you hit them with that, they were instantly dead. There was nothing they could do. But like, obviously, if they saw you coming, they would just gun you down because you were extremely slow and had no ranged weapons because all of your weight was on one side of your mech, and it was all just a melee spring-loaded steel bar, basically.
Just envisioning you as like a little porcupine, like a little on-demand porcupine, where you just kind of trundle around and then everything pops out.
I desperately hope we get another Chrome Hounds at some point, because just the customizability was so much more than even Armored Core, and that's saying something. Like Armored Core had a lot of builds you can make and stuff.
I do think though, not as much as it did what I expected. Armored Core has always done kind of, I think, the standard path, but I thought they would get, with the newest iteration, a little more customizable, because I don't think that for what Chrome Hound has done is something other smaller games have tried. And it's really so much of like the fun, because the fun of mech games to me is like there are two sides of it. There's the actual gameplay combat, flying around and shooting things, which is always fun. And the other, I think half of the fun is building. Like I just love building the mechs. For sure. They're really, really fun to play around with. And I think that their building works really, really well it complements the combat really, really well. I think they kind of have the different archetypes, and you can pick and choose between the different pieces between the archetypes, and that works in a way that feels very almost rock, paper, scissors-y with the different combat scenarios.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But yeah, there's not as much like you can just make something game-breakingly crazy. I think part of that is they have a PvP element, so that really makes it hard.
Well, Chrome Hounds had that also. Chrome Hounds had one of the cool. I think I've talked about it before on this podcast, but Chrome Hounds also came out with a very, very, very innovative, for the time, like full team-based PvP, and not just that, it was I can't remember what like the word for it is, but like a shared world, ongoing conflict kind of campaign that you could run in PvP. So think like PlanetSide 2, where like you pick a faction,
that's cool.
And even when you're not playing, like it's ongoing. And because that game came out before like game chat was like the, ubiquitous thing that it is now, especially like it came out like right before like being a 360 had like party chat and everything. Like it was a very special time where you just had in-game chat, but you did not have party chat. And so when you would load into a map, I can't remember if it was like 4-on-4 or 5-on-5 or whatever it was. But usually you'd have one person on your team who was like a designated commander. And so they would have a mech with like a big signal antenna on it, which means that they were also more vulnerable because it was easier to see them. And they had to sacrifice weight and mobility to have this big, like comms antenna on top of them. And on the map, there were like these big stationary antennas that you had to capture. And they would project an area around them on the map. And if you were within that area, you could do like cross-map communication with your team, right? But if the enemy came in and took like one of the connecting towers in the chain, they could cut off communication if you got like isolated, basically. And it was extremely cool. Like I was like, like I don't remember how old I was in 2007, but like young, and I didn't get to play it a lot. But just as a concept, that is so cool, and it's not something you can really do anymore because everybody would just use Discord or whatever else to get around it. But it was like fully integrated in the game that you like had to communicate, and you could actually do like real world tactics of trying to like cut communications and like divide people up. And then it had the like shared world overall like online campaign where basically I think there were 3 nations, and you would pick one at the start of like a season, and you would fight for them because you were a mercenary, just like in Armored Core. And like obviously if your team won more battles or like your overall faction won more battles, they would get more powerful. And I think, don't go inside, it's been a long time and that game's like long dead. I think like as your team won, you got more rewards. Like I think you would get like more money. I want to say you would get special parts like if your team was ahead and stuff. Just incentives. I might be completely wrong about that, but I vaguely remember something like that. But it was just such a cool thing. And then like that season would run for like, 30 days or whatever. And then like it would reset and you could pick another faction if you wanted to. And it had a single player like quote unquote campaign, but it was really just the multiplayer turned into single player. So it wasn't like great. And that's like all I could really do when I was a kid. So like it was fun. But yeah, Chrome Hounds is I hate to say hidden gem because that's so like overused, but it really was something special, I think, for the time.
Well, I think it qualifies in that it's very, again, it both is a very, very unique game. It's very, very well liked and has a cult following even today. And has sparked, to me, one of the hallmarks of a hidden gem, it has sparked copycats in the indie space, which this game definitely did. There are no other like big mainstream mech games that are like this, but I definitely think other people, I'm pretty sure some of the original devs for Chrome Hounds were like doing a Kickstarter to make another Chrome Hounds and were getting pretty well funded.
There was a, it's like an indie online only thing that was coming out, or it did come out, and I don't think it did very well or something, but I think you're right. I think it was a couple former devs, or maybe it might have even just been like devoted fans of Chromehounds trying to make something new. I can't remember which it was, but yeah, it was called like Moz or something.
Oh yeah, Math.
That sounds vaguely right. Yeah.
As an acronym.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it took off.
I don't think I ever. No, I don't believe it did, which is unfortunate. Because that game was wild. All the different things you could make.
But I think the Armored Core, again, I think it fits. It keeps the combat tight, which is definitely one of the things that I really kind of getting into the Armored Core 6. I appreciated about it. I think everything it's not as sprawling as other mech games, but everything it does is just the quintessential mech game in my eyes. Like if I was just making a cookie cutter one and it was like the absolute peak of the basics, that is Armored Core 6. They don't try and do anything crazy, but everything they do phenomenally well.
I was going to say, like, I agree with you. And it's a topic that I'd like to do as like an episode at some point in the future. But like the quintessential or like perfectly distilled version of a franchise. And like I have a couple games in across different franchises to me that are those things. And I would say for me, Armored Core 6 is definitely like what I always wanted out of all the other ones that I, looked at or played or whatever, into a like perfect paragon of that franchise, at least so far, obviously.
Yeah. But you've beaten it at this point, right? We were talking right before the podcast.
I did. I literally today's my day off. It's my Saturday. I got home from breakfast with some family and dove into it and got completely fucked up by the final boss, or at least I don't know how many like actual final bosses, because there are multiple endings. We're not going to like get into spoilers really or anything. So like, I don't know if my final boss is like everybody's final boss, but it was like for me, the final one. And I finally had to like kind of cheese it, at least what I consider cheesing it, which was, not bashing my head against it with the exact same build I always use and actually trying something different. But I did finally get it about like an hour and a half ago. So I did beat it, and I've been doing the New Game Plus before we got on.
Oh, there's New Game. Wow. I didn't think there would be New Game Plus.
So like every FromSoft game usually has New Game Plus. And up until like Elden Ring, usually when they did New Game Plus, there would actually be new content also, which like a lot of like the vast majority of games that have New Game Plus don't do that. Like it's just the same run again, but with your equipment and stuff. And Elden Ring is actually a little bit of a disappointment because there is nothing new in it. Like you can do New Game Plus, I think like 12 billion times if you want, and like stats increase every time you do it, but there's no new content. But I was really excited when I saw that this game does have new content, and I can definitely say I've only done like 5 or 6 missions of the New Game Plus. Most of them have so far been like the same missions, but there is new stuff. I've seen, I think, 2 or 3 completely new missions that were not in the like original run set of levels. So,
dude, I probably would have beaten the game by now if I had not thinking, because every time I play through the mech games, I usually like so much of my interest falls off after I beat the final boss, and that's kind of the end. And I will still replay the missions to try new weapons, but I'm not like really playing trying to be good is the best way I can think. I'm just kind of playing around trying stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this game helps too, because like not only is there New Game Plus, there are decision points that'll like.
Yeah,
like, I knew there were decision points in the game, and I would see, because like when you look at a mission, it'll say decision on it, but I wasn't sure when I did my very first decision one, because it showed 2 missions and they both said decision, so I was like, oh, I guess the decision is in the mission, so I just clicked the top one because that was the first one, and then me clicking that mission was the decision, and the game didn't make that clear, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm doing this path now, but like whatever. But there are a few of those, so like even if there wasn't like actual new content in New Game Plus, you could run the campaign again and do the other decisions to get a different ending. I think there's like 3 endings.
Yeah, that's what I saw. There's 3.
So.
And I think kind of you can tell from the story, there's kind of 3, at least the point I'm at, I feel like there's 3 routes you can really go.
I only saw like 2 for sure from what I did, and I think I picked the bad one, but it was fine. So I'm redoing it on the New Game Plus.
I think it was really fun. I ran into something similar. I saw Decision, and I don't know. I just intuitively, I knew, because I think they mentioned essentially, like it's very clear you're making a choice as to what you're going to pursue. It's going to kind of block you from doing the others in that allotted time. But like I knew this and I thought about it, but then I put the game down temporarily, and then I came back and I just wanted to do like a quick one because I didn't have much time before I had to put it down for a minute. And completely forgot the decision part and just picked the one that looked the shortest. And then saw that, and then afterwards, like at mid-mission, I'm like, oh, right. Like you can tell from the dialogue, I'm like, yeah, I'm locked in here.
I think it's funny. this game, I can't tell because this is definitely like a FromSoft thing to do. But you'll have like the decision point, and it'll be 2 missions, and one will be worth like 500,000 credits, which is like a pretty decent sum for a mission. And then the other one will be worth like 10,000.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, I don't have a lot of time. I also want to do something easier, so I'm going to do the 10,000 one. And then you get in there, and it's like obviously the harder choice because FromSoft likes to fuck with their players. I think I had that happen once, and I was like, oh, what the hell did I just pick?
I actually love the mission descriptions. They are generally descriptive, but I will say there's a couple key ones that I was replaying the missions, and I wasn't reading the titles. I just read the description. I was like, oh, I'll write this one, and I'll do it. I'll throw it out there. One of them is defend an area, and that is the description. And you enter the mission, and let me tell you, from the very beginning, it's clear you're not defending an area. You are doing something else. It was just funny to me that the game more or less lies to you.
I don't know which one that one is then, because I had 2 that I remember clearly being defense missions, but they were definitely like defense missions.
Oh, maybe it was a choice thing. That'd be crazy if that's a choice thing. I almost want to censor this part. It's not that big of a spoiler. The defend turns into a 1v1.
I'll figure it out, but...
Did you remember that one? You end up getting a 1v1 with... Actually, this is not that major. You end up getting in a 1v1 with someone who shares a call sign with you.
Oh.
Maybe that's a different
That one for me wasn't a defense mission. I mean, like, it's... Okay, so it does say... Okay, I know which one we're talking about then. Because I was thinking one actually started as a defense mission.
No. It just says it in the description.
Yeah, no, that one's great. Yeah, it does.
And I was just reading the description, and so I'm like, I had
a
build, and I changed my build. Thinking it was like the other defense mission, and then I'm like, oh,
I did
cool.
Too. I did too. I had like 2 big 10-cell missile launchers on my back, ready to like multi-target
exactly
and stuff.
that.
And then I got in there, and I was like, oh,
this is worthless.
No.
I instantly, I didn't even go through with it. Honestly, I instantly restarted and just swapped it by 1v1.
I didn't think that fight was that tough though, so
no,
I didn't actually struggle with that fight. Really, like I think I had to redo it like twice, but like compared to the other bosses in that game, I was like, "Oh, this was like chill, whatever."
I think that's my one. Actually, it's not really a criticism because there does need to be easier content, but it's clear from how the AI works. The AI needs helpers or an advantage because you just take another comparable suit, which is really what that was, what the arena is, and just put it up against a human player. You are gonna, even with a bad build, you can just run them over.
Oh. If anybody wants to know how to just win the arena, or if like Greg listened to this after he gets it, because like I know he's gonna need like a little bit of a handicap to help him, just take 2 of the pistols that do high impact damage, which like causes enemies to stagger, which also is a cool thing this game has, which is like carried over from other like FromSoft games where there's like the poise or like stagger system. But yeah, take 2 of those and then a really strong melee weapon and just constantly stagger in the arena because there's nothing else to fight, so they can't do anything to you. Because you're just constantly in their face staggering.
Melee's in the one.
I
crazy.
Used that build, the 2 pistols and melee, and maybe like a rocket launcher for like burst damage, and that won me almost every single arena fight within seconds. I think there was only like 3 where that didn't work, and I had to change my build.
Yeah, I was telling you when we were texting about it. When in doubt, anytime any mission, especially one that had an element of a 1v1, gave me trouble. Instant double Gatling guns. Let me tell you, if you are bad at the game, that is the best way to do it because you can focus purely on the movement. You just hold the triggers and be in a relative range.
And if you specifically do that and the assault boost, because that one reduces damage to you and then also buffs the like stagger damage, I definitely won the Ibis fight. That's how after banging my head against it for a while, I did dual miniguns and just did the assault boost around the big arena that you're in and got her or it down that way.
I think speaking of the bosses, did you have any standout ones that you thought were like overwhelmingly better, or ones that like I thought all of them were overall good? There were surprisingly no stinkers, which usually every game when it has bosses has one that you hate.
No, I think I like all of them a lot. And like playing through not just New Game Plus, but like, replaying missions to get the S ranks. I think it's really cool that like, when you first start out fighting even just like the very first boss, which is like a big helicopter, it wasn't like challenging, but it was definitely like, oh, I got to get used to the controls and like, I'm not doing great. Like I definitely died a few times on that. And then obviously Balteus is the very first like major roadblock for, if anybody's played Elden Ring, I would say Balteus is the like Margit equivalent in this game, where you're doing pretty well and then you get to that and you're like, holy shit. And then the game's like surprisingly easy after Balteus for like a while.
I was taken back because I had the same thought where I was like, oh, this is where
Elden Ring
punish you.
Once you get past Margit, it's like super chill for a while. It's great. And then like later on you do it again and it's like you're like, oh, I learned how to do this because I've been playing. Yeah, Balteus is definitely like it's the first like heavy roadblock for sure.
It's also my favorite boss ever in a mech game. Even though I also wiped on him several times.
I'd say that's fair. It's the most like I would say it's the most Japanese like mecha style boss because it's just missile swarms and it's wild and it's really cool.
And the flames. I thought like those two things take advantage of how good the well I think at least I'm not sure about you, but how I managed it when I finally downed him is I just blitzed him in phase 2 before he could really start to do anything.
I mean, I told you my playstyle is my same playstyle in Halo, where you just close to melee distance and then aggressively melee and like dodge as much as you can, and it works really well. It requires like the good timing on like learning the movesets, which like is probably good for me because like it's usually what I struggle with in these games. But like the Sea Spider, like Jacob, he's been playing it and he beat it before we did, and he was like, yeah, on the Sea Spider, I just used the tetrapod legs and
I did the same. I had one shot at
miniguns and it was chill. And I was like, oh, I spent a while doing it because I just used melee and I had to stay beneath it, which meant that I was the most agile I think I've been in any game I've ever played.
It seems really
Staying
hard.
underneath that spider the entire time is really hard.
Melee actually seems borderline impossible for that boss.
Oh, it's great. I love it. It's so rewarding when you get to do it.
There's also you go from like a really heavy grounded melee phase to an airborne. And I think every build has a boss where like
I still did melee in the air
You're
phase.
You're insane.
No, it was great.
I don't know how you. I thought the air phase wasn't that bad.
It as long as you didn't let it like, because like again, as someone who had to give it time for it to like go around the arena, because like I had to get up to it because it's like way up in the arena. If you let it get up there, it'll like punish you if you're not like right on top of it trying to kill it still. Because there were a couple of times where I was doing it and I wasn't able to like get the melee hits, off the way I wanted them to, and it would start like shooting lasers and just being ridiculous, and I couldn't get back up to it because it was so high up. Oh no, melee build was the way to go for me.
I think I was all the second in the tutorial. I think at one point it introduces like, hey, here's a high speed mid-range double gun, and like you're just gonna pressure with bullets, and this is one of the types of builds. And I was like, no. This is the type of build.
It's probably the best for sure. I just really, really like if it were up to me, I would have 2 melee weapons. It bums me out that you can only have 1 melee weapon on the left hand at a time. I want to do both.
Also surprised there wasn't a more. I mean, literally that. I thought they were going to just maybe in New Game Plus or later you unlock something like this, but I thought they were going to straight up give you the shoulder shield that other enemies had and just let you have a melee in the other weapon. Like just have a shield and a melee weapon and just run that.
And that'd be nice for sure. I know 1 melee weapon in the game that I don't have yet because it's in every single FromSoft game. And it's actually, people may not realize it's actually originally from Armored Core, not from like other things. It's the like Moonlight Greatsword or whatever, which is like a classic FromSoft weapon. Every game has it. I'm pretty sure it's in this one also, and I don't know how to get it. So I still need to get that. And then V4 Rusty is like one of the recurring characters in the game, like your buddy for like a lot of it. He's got a cool spinning twin blade, like arm blade weapon, and I don't have that, so I'm hoping I can get that at some point. That's a really cool melee weapon that I'd like to have.
Yeah, it gives me a lot of hope that there's new content in New Game Plus. It does open up, because I really did think this is, and part of why we've been going back and forth in our text with Greg, because Greg has been the like, should a person who isn't invested in mech games play this? Like he's been our point of discussion for like that, because I am a little more tempered on whether I think it's worth it right now for $60.
I think it is.
I think it's an incredible game. I don't regret my $60.
I thought Elden Ring was the most accessible FromSoft game, and now I think it's this.
Oh, this is definitely more accessible.
This is
than Elden Ring.
Easily the most accessible FromSoft game, like by far. Like, if you don't have experience with FromSoft games, if you don't think you can handle the usual difficulty curve they put in their games, play this and then play Elden Ring, because they are both very forgiving and very, very, very good.
They're super different. I think FromSoft feels a lot more the Souls games, and specifically Elden Ring, feel a lot more typical to video games, whereas I think the demands of how you use your mobility in this game are a little jarring if you're not used to it. Like, just how much it's going to be asking you to hit buttons and also intelligently move and intelligently dodge. If you're not used to that pace.
I think you're right, but you also don't have to, because like I'm not going to say I'm that great, and I was able to do it with a melee build for most things. And like I'm obviously in general more experienced at just games, like I know how a controller works and stuff. Like, you know, we've been playing games for almost 30 years, but like if I can do it with a melee build through most of the game, yeah. I think most people could probably do it not doing a melee build, because like, and like I said, the freaking Ibis fight I struggled with, and then I immediately, like, after bashing my head against it, I was talking to Jacob, and he was just like, yeah, dual miniguns. And I was like, I don't want to, but sure, I'll give it a shot. And then I did dual miniguns for like 2 more missions after that. And I was like, this is really literally just easy.
It is. I tried to not use it too much because it does make the game a little easier. And again, I assumed I was going for replay value. Sounds like that'll be good in New Game Plus. But yeah, there are a couple like very cheesy builds. And that's what I think makes it approachable. The one I would recommend it to new players is, even if you're not good at the combat, there is a build that wins you that encounter really easily. Like somewhere in the pieces you can put the Legos together, and just with Spider Boss, and there's 2 with Tetra. Tetra being a little, instead of the usual 2-legged mech, you're gonna have a 4-legged mech, and its advantage for that, among other things, is that it can hover for a really, really long period of time. And there's the other, it super invalidates is something cleaner. I think steam cleaner or heat cleaner.
Oh, the smart cleaner.
Smart cleaner.
Called. I just did that one a little while ago as like a replay. Yeah.
They really, really fun one. Another one that I think is visually spectacular, but if you can hover even more so than the spider, at least the spider can shoot at you. The cleaner cannot shoot at you. And it shoots around itself in an AoE that is not targeted at you, so it has nothing to threaten you with. And you just absolutely...
It's really hard as a melee build.
It's huge. And its melee attacks are huge.
That's one of the few that I did not do. Like I did, I think, dual energy pistols most recently, and just hovered above it and just shot down into its like weak point on the top. And even that was still hard because I didn't have a lot of armor. And those like lava magma balls that shoot out of the top do a lot of damage when you don't have a lot of armor. That one was rough for my second time through.
It was so close range. Again, it was like there was just a type, because if you were like the miniguns, or I think I went full brain dead because I did Tetra. I just hovered there and I had explosives. I didn't even have to aim well. I just I just clicked the triggers until the fight was over.
Just checking your phone and stuff.
But again, there's just like there's some way, and it's not a way that I feel like you have to Google. Like, it should be very, very quick. I will say the one that I got frustrated with because I was built poorly for it, that was really early, and I thought I was going to not like the game actually as a result, was Juggernaut. That is if you are running Brain Dead shoot. Because if you're running Brain Dead shoot at the guy, and you're spacing in the front.
Melee build on that? Chill. Because you just get behind it, stun it, and then you just melee the... Like, I just did it, I think, in like 30 seconds on like New Game Plus. I burned through that fight with like the later tier melee weapons I have.
And then if you could...
I did struggle when I first did it, but it was like... I think I struggled on that less than I did on the helicopter in the very beginning.
I quit out because I ran out of ammo and did not have anything that I could use to...
Did you resupply before you went up there? Because I did not. The very first time, I did not resupply. I heard Handler Walter, like your like main handler narrative character in the game. He said there's going to be a resupply thing for you, but I didn't like know what the game would show that as. And so my very first run through of that level, I did not resupply. So I had to get through the beginning, get enough ammo, and then get there. And luckily the game, which is one of the reasons I think it's a very, very, very accessible game, it has a fantastic checkpoint system. Now I will say it has the same checkpoint system that every other game has had for 30 years, but for FromSoft, it's like the only thing like it. And it's so nice. And not only is it a checkpoint in the sense that like it gives you that progress of like, you know, going right before the boss room, which like Elden Ring, you know, has that with like the Statues of America and stuff. It also gives you back your like repair kits and ammo and stuff on whenever you die and restart, which I did not expect the game to be that generous with it being FromSoft. I was like, it's going to restart me here, but I'm not going to have anything.
Because it let you rebuild. And so you can get through a fight with a particular build that doesn't work well for a boss, and then get to the boss just runs you over. And then you get to rebuild specifically for that guy. Which is what I did. Like, I just wiped on it the first time I ran out of bullets.
I did that a lot.
Instantly switched the build specifically for that, and then ran it over. So,
I totally agree. And that's, like, one thing that, like, I would sometimes plan for in my head is, like, I would do a mission, and I would be using a build that was, like, not for the boss to get through all the, like, MTs and stuff that are leading up to it. And then I knew I would get to the boss, I would die, and I would just hope there'd be a checkpoint. So when I respawned, I could do the boss appropriate build, which was usually high stagger damage and a melee weapon, which doesn't always work for the other things, because a lot of the stuff that does high stagger has very little ammo. And if the game is throwing a billion things at you before the boss, I would burn through all my ammo and then be like, well, I think I did one boss trying to punch it, just trying, because I didn't have any ammo. And it's really hard. I got it down to like half health, but then I died.
One experience trying to punch, and it was I punched, did no damage, and then got whipped around, hit by the guy I punched, and insta-killed. And I was like, I'm never trying that again. Like, if I run
the punches do a lot of stagger damage. You just have to have something to capitalize on that, and it's not the punch.
Yeah, exactly. I've run out of ammo like 3 or 4 times since that first time, and every time I don't even, like, the playthrough's over. I'm quitting and restarting.
Yep.
But
I would say, I think like you said, the ability to rebuild your build mid mission when you die, and to be clear, it doesn't give you the full range of parts like in the store that's in the game, but it does give you anything that you already own. So sometimes it's worth it just to buy like a decent like array of things, and then when you go into a mission, you'll have a decent array of things to pull from to build like for a new build. But it is super, super, super handy, because then you can, like, Packy just said, just try out a bunch of different stuff. Every single time you die, you've already got the checkpoint, so you can just, try something different every single time. And it works really well. Yeah,
it's really nice for, like, because I think that it, even if it doesn't ultimately help you a ton, because I had a couple, it makes you... It makes bashing your head against the wall of a boss feel that little bit better, and that you genuinely feel like you're trying something new. It's like, all right, well, I'll make this little change, even if it's pretty insignificant. It's like, but that's a new way that we're going to attack this problem.
Yep. And I'll say, too, that's to me why Elden Ring was as good as it is. And also, again, like before this, the most accessible. Because Elden Ring was open world, you could bash your head against a boss and then be like, all right, I'm going to go do something else for a while. Like, this is not a, like, gate like every other FromSoft game where, like, you get to a boss in like Dark Souls and you're just stuck. Like, there's nowhere else to go. This boss is the threshold to the next entire like area of content. And Elden Ring was able for you to, you could go do something else for a little while and level up and get new gear and stuff. And that's something too that I think, obviously, like all the FromSoft games, other than like maybe Sekiro, where it's like, because Sekiro only has like one weapon, it's got the sword that the whole game's about. Like, it's always about builds, right? So, like, managing weight and stuff is, like, definitely a FromSoft thing. Like, all the games have it. Depending on how much stuff you have equipped, you may be able to, like, have better dodge rolls and stuff. But I think it is so nice that you're able to do the build management so easily in Armored Core. Because in something like Elden Ring, which, like, I love Elden Ring, obviously, if you want to try a new build, like, it's probably going to take you completely deconstructing your character to try it, to the point where, like, you have to reset your stats because you've already got, like, a bunch of levels into, like, vitality and stuff or whatever. You obviously have to have, like, gone to a location to find, like, a new sword or, like, new armor from, like, enemy drops and stuff. But Armored Core makes it so much easier because, one, you can just buy the stuff from the in-game store. And this isn't, like, a microtransaction store, just to be clear. It's literally just, like, using the credits that the missions reward you with. And then when you die in a mission or whatever, you can just immediately rebuild your character. And you don't have to worry about like levels really or anything. You don't have to worry about like different stats that you would in like a Dark Souls or an Elden Ring. Because usually I feel like in Elden Ring and the Dark Souls games, you don't get to do the build variation and like trying new builds until you get to New Game Plus. Because then you already have everything and you're starting from the beginning. And in Armored Core, you can do that basically at any point in the entire game. It's just so nice.
Yeah, I will say, and that kind of gets at the meta, like how the game is at a high level designed outside of the combat. Like how's the flow of starting the game, playing a mission, all that go. I think it's where they help themselves a lot by keeping it really, really simple. There's not an upgrade system. There is not like, it is just it's the quintessence of these mech games where you do mission, you get money, parts will unlock in the store progressively as you complete more missions. You will not have enough money to buy all of them, but buy some of them to buy builds. And then you continue, like, pick mission from pretty cut dry menu with just title name of mission, very brief description, and then you're going to have somebody in your ear giving you a slightly more detailed breakdown. Earn money, store, and repeat that 3-step cycle over and over and over again.
Yeah, and like the game loads really quickly, so like it's never like a slog to die or anything, or even to like go back to the menu and then reload the mission. Like if you have to go all the way back out to go back to the store, and also not only like can you get to a point where like you're maybe don't have enough money and you need to progress? You can just go back and replay any of the missions you've already done, and they still give you like the full credit reward that you would have gotten if you did it the first time. And so you can progressively just like, that's how you upgrade your build, is like if you need a new shotgun, which I would say like from what I've seen, most of the weapons in the game are all like on the same level as far as like usability. It all just depends on like what you're going for, which makes it really nice because you're never like, generally you're not buying like trying to buy a new shotgun that does like X amount more damage and is like an objective upgrade. Like there's like two main like kinetic shotgun, or I guess there's three kinetic shotguns, which are just like the basic shotguns that do, you know, bullet damage. And like all three of them serve a different function, and they're not like immediate upgrades of each other. They're all like just side grades where like one reloads really quickly, for example, maybe, or one does more long range damage, but it reloads slower. And so it all is just tailored to what you need in that situation. And being able to replay missions to get more money means you can go buy something else and then immediately jump in and try that build on whatever mission you were stuck on, which we've all definitely done at some point.
Yeah, I think I was really, really impressed by that the initial equipment that you got and initial weapons that you unlocked were not completely invalidated by future ones. Because that's
not even the like initial armored core like pieces themselves are bad.
There's only one that I can remember. It's the targeting system, and I think it's like how they introduce you to switching stuff. There's one piece that like if you look at it compared to others is like, all right, this is useless.
Yeah, the like fire control system. Exactly.
Probably. And it's the only one.
But like the starting assault rifle you get, I definitely used for probably like 60 to 75% of the game. It's just like a good workhorse like all around. I told you, Packy, before we started, the pulse blade that you start with, which is like an energy sword on your left hand.
I was so ready to buy a new one, and you just said use the first one.
I think it's like the laser sword is really good. The laser sword objectively does more damage and everything, but one, it is a little bit slower. The charge on the laser sword is the charge attack has the worst hit detection of anything. Like it makes me mad every single time I use it because it misses every single time. And the pulse blade is faster. It has the 2-hit consecutive hit without having to charge. You can just do a combo 2-hit real quick. It's good against the pulse armor, which is like the energy shield that a lot of the enemies have eventually, especially later on. And if you look at like the detailed stats, which that's one thing the game like doesn't really tell you initially, is when you're looking at like equipment, it shows you like a really brief set of stats that are like the main stats that you care about, like how much damage does this do, how much energy does this generator give you. But if you hit triangle, or I'm assuming on the Xbox Y, it opens up the big spreadsheet of stats. Every single piece of equipment has a massive, massive spreadsheet of stats that, you know, they are impactful. So like the pulse blade, for example, is better against shields than like the other melee weapons. And the one thing that it does that's really nice is there's like the main damage that you do, which is like just a health, the basic damage that eventually when you reduce an enemy's health to 0, like they'll just die straight up, of course. But then there's the stagger damage, which if you've played any other, you know, FromSoft game, you can stagger enemies, which makes them vulnerable to more damage and usually means that they can't move or do anything else. And in Armored Core, when you stagger enemies, you do a lot more damage to them. And again, they're stunned for a second. And there's impact damage that's like immediate. So like this gun might have, 50 impact damage, which means that it immediately does 50 of that to their impact health bar, basically. But there's also, basically every weapon also does a like passive amount whenever it hits that just stays on the target for a certain amount of time. So maybe this gun does 50 immediate damage, but it also does like 25 stacking passive impact damage with each hit you do to get closer. So even if you miss, it'll still have some of that on there. And the Pulse Blade does a lot of just passive impact damage, like a cumulative. So even if like you're not doing a ton up front, it does a lot more just passive, and it means that you stagger enemies a lot more than some of the other melee weapons. Yeah, that was a lot to talk about for just like the single Pulse Blade. But I guess that's the point, is that there is a lot to talk about for a lot of the weapons, because there is so much like nitty gritty stats that actually affect the gameplay and stuff for each like piece of equipment.
Yeah, it's definitely a game that has both breadth and depth.
Trying to think what else.
Trying to say there's just so much breadth and depth to the game that I think I really appreciate it. Because yeah, you unlock the basic stuff, and again, I assumed you were just going to move on from it incredibly quickly. But I think all of those, especially some of the parts of the original, I came back to those at several different points throughout in a way that I didn't expect to. Yeah, I honestly, when I saw the Tetras, I don't think I've played only like one or two that have that, and they're some of my favorites in like mech anime and different depictions of mechs. I always think they're like the coolest looking ones.
They're really cool.
I was like, this is me now. I just hard switched. But that is my one complaint that I think is probably solved by New Game Plus. And just like they want to encourage you to play more missions, is I think you probably have enough money and I think I did really well when I cleared the missions, and when I went back and did them, I usually like B rank or above them, so I'm getting a fair bit of cash each time I did one. And I still felt like I only had enough, because you're going to have to buy different weapons to accommodate different situations. That's a must. That's the first. And to do different, like actually significantly play different built mechs, I think you probably have enough from the campaign and replaying some of the missions to do about 2. I've got enough to do about 2.5 between.
I think at this point I probably have like, I know I have, I think 5 or 6 different like data sets saved, like basically loadouts saved, that all do like slightly different or like majorly different things.
I think the archetypes of a light build, a medium build, a heavy build, and a super heavy build. And like I think I've got medium, heavy, and then I have like I call a pseudo super heavy with like the I think most people you're gonna get pushed towards medium, right? You're gonna have different, mostly it's gonna be different flavors of medium, so you can adapt to different ones.
Most adaptable for sure.
I
think it's funny that you went the super heavy and heavy route, because like most of my stuff it's either like solidly medium or like a heavy medium, where it's still definitely medium because it's just the default, like, the regular biped legs, but with like slightly heavier armor as you get, better legs, better generators and stuff. And then the one I've been using since I beat the game to do like the New Game Plus is the lightest one I think I've ever made, and it is so freaking fast, and I love it. It's so good.
That's that. I want to try it.
It uses, basically it's the same like dual impact like heavy pistol build that I was using in the arena, but it's these special pistols that you unlock later on called the needle gun, and it basically does the same thing that the heavy pistols do, but it shoots a little bit faster, and I think it has more overall ammo. It does a little bit less damage, but the damage and the impact are about equal, and they're just good. So I've been doing like the dual build of that within a melee weapon, and I have a special turret that I unlocked, which I can't remember if I got it from a story mission or from doing one of the like battle log like data collection things where you just like kill certain enemies and it gives you like a stacking progress towards like another unlock. Which if you've not been doing that pack, you definitely need to.
From arenas, I think. No. The turret is from the combat logs, because I think the last thing you get from the arenas. I'm glad you mentioned this, because the last thing you get from arenas is what does this game call them? They're just funnels from Gundam, because everybody like feels obligated in mech games to try it with like an automated gun that just flies around and automatically targets the enemy and just lasers them.
Yes, which I've tried using that one, which that one is like the 6 drone that goes out and like hovers around an enemy, or you can charge it to do like 2 drones that do more damage. But I have the one that I think the description for that one mentions called like an orbital drone, which for like the orbital drone, it just hovers over one of your shoulders, whichever shoulder it's equipped on. It just hovers over it and shoots from there. I've been using that one on this really light build, which basically just means I have like a 3rd gun arm. So I've got my 2 pistols that do all the impact damage. I have the melee weapon that I can swap to on the left, and then on the right I have this hovering drone that always stays over my shoulder that does like decent laser damage, and it's light enough, and I have such high energy generator capacity because I want it to be as like light and fast as possible, that I just like zip around and just stagger everything and just go in and like stab it, because you eventually get the laser dagger, which is like the smaller version of the laser sword. And the dagger is super good. I really, really like the dagger. It almost won me against like the final boss. I ended up doing something different, but it was my best melee weapon against my final boss that I had before I swapped over to the build that eventually actually like made me beat it.
First complaints about this game, because I saw the turret and never even tried it, because the way it's described makes it seem like the turret sits in one area, not it comes with you.
So there are 3.
There it is.
There are 3 different kinds of turrets. There's the one that like you get in the store, which just sits in one area, and I have not tried that myself yet. Although I could see that being fun for like a defense mission, right?
Yeah, exactly that. Of which there's one.
Yeah. And then there's the ones you get from the arena, which go out and like hover around an enemy, and I think they do decent damage, but they despawn pretty quickly. I never had a lot of success.
They do
even doing like 2 of them on my back,
because I watched them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even with having 2 on my back, I never felt like I did enough. But the orbital one that stays right over your shoulder the whole time is really, really good. I really like it.
That was my... Actually, that's really comforting, because I always love the drones funnels. in all mech games that I've seen that try them, they do go in one of two directions. They are either incredibly overpowered good or useless bad. Because the ability, something's like, hey, it flies independent of you and it's going to target and it's going to hit almost every single time. It's automatic damage. Like either that's really, really valuable or they're going to make the damage so insignificant that it's completely worthless.
Yeah. If the one that you get in the arena that launches the 6 drones, if it would target more than one enemy at a time consistently, I think it would be better. Because sometimes you just get into a room and there's a bunch of like the super basic, MT enemies that are everywhere. And like I only have like 2 pistols, so like I'm not going to be able to hit them all at once. And I didn't bring missiles. So like if I could use the drones to target like, 12 of them at once, even if it's only like 1 drone each, that would be great. But I could never get it to reliably do that. It would just target whatever I was already targeting. And I'm like, I don't need that. Yeah. And the orbital drone, which like they said, the shoulder hugging one, it seems to do a better job of like one hitting whatever I'm looking at. But as I like switch between targets, it'll take a shot. And so it'll take the shot on the one that I just switched off of. It just seems more reliable. I have not tried to build with 2 of those yet, just one on each shoulder to see how it is. But I'm probably
like pure movement and then just
I'm probably going to go, try that.
I'm sad they didn't use that as a funnels of one. And one of the missed opportunities in a game that is, again, I think very, very complete in its builds is something anti-missile. And I think that's just to put pressure on you to dodge. / not invalidate.
The thing is that the enemies have anti-missile systems.
Right?
I don't know if I'm sure you've seen at least one of those already. It's like the PCA super advanced faction you fight. They have anti-missiles, and I was like, that's really cool, but also really annoying. But it didn't matter because I would just go up and melee them anyway. So I was just like, whatever.
They give themselves a couple tools they don't give others, and that's what I thought drones funnels would be for, because that's where my favorite iteration of them in other games is when they take out missiles, because not only is it really useful, it looks really cool.
It does look really cool. Going against like Balteus and having something like that would be
You're zipping and zooming and you're seeing them like zip and zoom behind you and hit the missiles that get closest to you. Feels very high pace, high anxiety, like living on the edge kind of moments, and just
it's very, very anime.
But
yeah, for sure.
I think I don't want to dog on the game too much. I think they overall did such a fantastic job. It's such a good...
Oh, I think it's incredible.
I think to sum up, I still do stand by. I think that it is a perfect game. If you've played mech games and you like mech games, just go get it now. There will not be another one that is even close to this level of quality for years and years and years.
No, except for Chrome Hounds 2.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And it's right around the corner. Based on this Google search of people who have tried to recreate the game. And then I still think it's worth waiting to the $40 mark for those people. And this is a game, it's like the first $60 game I've bought in months and months and months. I still think it's worth waiting if you don't know that you like mech games. I think wait for it to hit that very first sale and then go for it.
I think that's fair. And again, just speaking as somebody who loves FromSoft games, but is objectively god-awful at all of them except for Elden Ring and this one, it's 110% the most accessible, easiest one to get into of their entire catalog, by far. Like, Elden Ring is still a Souls game at its core. It's just a very accessible one. This is just an accessible game. And like, we were saying, you definitely have to have good reaction time for parts of it, but you can definitely just tank through it if you want to. Which, speaking of the tanks, that's like probably the one thing I've used the least is like the tank treads. But, I mean, if you wanted to go full just heavy and never get staggered and never die from like just, tick damage, like it's the tank treads by far.
There's the mini one of that. It's really funny. I had a whole bit mission that I want to talk about that, but we have wrapped up our full time here. We said we're going to do a short one today, and I don't want us to go too long.
I'll keep talking. I don't care. I'll talk about this game all day and other things all day.
Our listeners, and we can keep talking afterwards. But I do think we're right about that hour mark, and I think we've made a good case for Armored Core today. Yeah. I think they really needed our help to hit those sales numbers.
People should get it. They really did, for sure. They were waning on goodwill after Elden Ring and the announcement of its expansion coming out next year.
Man, Armored Core got
having a bad time.
They got the Elden Ring bump, and man, because I feel like that could be such a hidden gem game if it was not coming from Software. Like, it didn't have all that notoriety.
Oh yeah, I mean, of course.
Otherwise, the last game was 10 years ago. Nobody cares.
Yeah, I mean, if Elden Ring had not been the success that it was, they would still be like a solid, great company making great games, but they would still just be the like Souls-like company. And I think Elden Ring, again, despite being a Souls-like game, still opened it up so much for them.
All that solidified. Like, if they put out a one of these two mainline games, like, I'm just going to go try it because they're the ones doing it. Like, might as well.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, they even switched it up before that because, like, Bloodborne was different than the original Souls games. It's way more aggressive of a game compared to the, like hiding and dodging and stuff. And Sekiro, very different, again, in just how you play it from the other Souls games, was definitely a little spin-off. We've got Elden Ring, we've got this. Like, I think FromSoft is... I mean, they're very good at making what they're like best at making, but I think they're a very talented group of people making things that they want to make, which you don't get to see that very often in the current games industry. So
I'm excited for whatever they come out with next.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope this game gets DLC of some kind, even if it's
please.
like. Also, this game has multiplayer, which I haven't even gotten to try yet because like right now it looks like it's just custom matches, but like it has 1v1 and 3v3 multiplayer. You can just bring your customized cores into that and fight people and see all kinds of builds.
That's what's going to keep it alive forever.
That's crazy.
It's going to be alive until the next one.
Sure,
of that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we can wrap that up for today. This was very, very fun.
Thank you, listeners. All like 15 of you or whatever now.
We are up to those double digits.
Shout out to both Gavins and Alex and everybody else.
I'll give a shout out to Sam.
Sam can have it. He's allowed to.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you, guys. See ya.